Hi there, I'm Mark Smith. I'm one of the electric vehicle instructors here at Wake Tech at the Hendrick Center. We're going to go over some tips to summarize your vehicle, including a few extra tips for summarizing your hybrid or electric vehicle. One of the first things in getting your vehicle ready for summer driving is to make sure your tires are properly inflated. One of the other things to look for is, do you have any extra wear in your brakes? And in this vehicle, and most newer vehicles, you can actually see the brake rotors and you can see whether they're uniform condition or whether any grooves or pits. And a little hard to see whether the brake pads are having a problem, but if you see grooves or any kind of a non-uniform surface on those rotors, then it's time to get them looked at. So one of the other major things to take care of is your windshield wipers, both front and if you have them in the rear. And there are windshield wiper blade sharpeners. And they go for about $20. Used to be very common to do that, and now that windshield wipers have gotten so expensive, those sharpeners will work usually twice at max. And so the second time you use it, you've paid for the tool. And then under the hood again, batteries. Take care of your batteries. Summer is a great time to clean the terminals. Now this one is a fairly new vehicle. It's one of our fleet vehicles here from GM. And you can see these terminals are nice and clean. That's the negative terminal back here, and that's the positive. If you have any corrosions on your terminal, it only takes a 10 millimeter wrench or a 10 millimeter socket in a few minutes. Well worth your time to do that, to pull these off and pull the negative off first, clean it, pull the positive off, clean it, put it back on. There are some tips if you do have a newer car, if you want to keep from having to reset anything. There are some tips on how to keep the connection while you're cleaning the terminals. So you've also got your fluids that are usually in the engine compartment. So I've got brake and power steering fluids here. Those typically aren't consumed, so they'll slowly go low because of slight leakages in the system, just to check them and make sure that there's some kind of an indicator line or some kind of equivalent to a dipstick to tell you how much to fill it. Those are important to keep topped off at the right level and no more than the level showed on the container. And then windshield washer, which now that typically they hold almost a gallon, pretty close to a gallon or a gallon. And keeping these topped off in the summer, having a sudden summer rain where maybe you're on a muddy road, sure is good to have some windshield wiper fluid in there. And last in here, but definitely not least, oil. Make sure you've got your oil here. Now, some of these, the actual place you put the oil and the dipstick are located really far apart. Dipstick's on the other side. But make sure you don't top off to higher than the dipstick. And if you are adding oil to an engine that's just been running, definitely don't add it to higher than the dipstick. So right now this is right at the level of the full indicator on the dipstick. And that's really where you want to keep it. And on our electric vehicle here, we have a Chevy Bolt. And this one actually is a new one of our cars here at Wake Tech at the Hendrick Center. Number one, whenever you open the hood or an access point to the cable in an electric or hybrid, stay away from the orange or the blue cables. Now when the power is not on, we don't have the ignition on, then those are not live. But still, stay away from them, that's where the high voltage is. But you will have somewhere nearby, occasionally it's in the back of the car, you'll have a 12 volt lead acid battery is the typical battery in most EVs until just this past year. This is just a 12 volt starter battery from GM. Same maintenance as you would have on the internal combustion engine of the Denali we showed earlier. So again, keep the terminals clean, same process. If you are going to clean the terminals, I mentioned before, you can look up videos on how to keep a jumper wire connected. When you pull these off, you can keep a jumper wire on both of these so that you don't lose any of the programming in the electronics. And then the other area here, we have the same type of fluids that we have on internal combustion engines. Some of them wind up in nooks and crannies because there's not usually as much space in the front of an EV as there is in a full-size internal combustion engine vehicle. But all these need to be maintained. There usually is an extra one here for cooling, and the coolant then is for the electronics here. So we have cooling for electronics just like we would have cooling for the internal combustion engine. We don't have the same kind of a radiator, but we do actually have a fan here that is cooling. Some of here we have a standard air conditioner from a car. And again, windshield wipers and windshield wiper fluid, same as you would have in an internal combustion engine car. Well, thank you all for joining us. I hope these tips help you in your summer driving experience this year. So stay safe and look for more tips coming from the Wake Tech Hendrick Center.